Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very senior and tall corporate leader, a banker, and an author from Mumbai, India, Mr. Sunder Rajan Raman. Mr.
Thank you.
Raman, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Privilege.
Thank you. Mr. Raman is the former chairman and managing director of Canara Bank, which is one of India's major banks. He's an author, and all of you know I'm very partial to authors. He's an author of a book titled From a Car Shed to the Corner Room and Beyond. And given the amazing journey Mr. Raman has had, he has been recognized, awarded, and felicitated several times. And before I ask you a question, I know the book is a huge bestseller. It has sold some 25 or 28,000 copies on Amazon. So I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out Mr. Sunder Rajan Raman's book on Amazon, From a Car Shed to the Corner Room and Beyond. So, sir, tell me, what was the inspiration to write a memoir about your very successful career?
This book was, in fact, an accident. I never had any ambition or plan or, to write. And in fact, for writing a book, I didn't have the skills also, and as much as I never knew MS Word. Even today, I don't have MS Word. I wrote the entire book on my iPhone.
Oh, wow.
Which might surprise people. I have written the preface as to how it started. But anyway, the trigger for my writing the book started initially when one of my bosses in Bank of India, a very respected person, Mr. V.S. Ramakrishnan, he wanted me to write a piece on Mr. Wagul. Ian Wagul is one of the greatest people I have met in my life.
Yes.
Certainly, he was the first great man I have met in my life. Great professional, great human being. So when I wrote and sent the article to him, Mr. Ramakrishnan, I was also blessed incidentally by having a friendship across the spectrum in India at very top places. So as and when when I wrote Mr. Wagul's piece on Mr. Wagul, I sent it to people like Mr. Shaktikant Das, Deepak Parekh, Uday Kotak, Vinod Rai, and so many other people. So all Narayan Murthy, etc., etc. And I got a huge response that, Raman, you write so well. And there was one suggestion saying, Raman, your life is an inspiration story because we know it. Why don't you write something as to how your starting point when you joined State Bank of India as a clerk?
Yeah.
So that one thing led to the other. So I wrote about my first train journey when I left Hyderabad. I grew up in Hyderabad. And in Hyderabad, we were actually residents in a car shed. That's how the title comes from.
Wow.
We were 3+2, but living in a small little room which could accommodate a small car those days, 60 years ago, just 2 feet margin around. So, but there were some 2 or 3 wonderful things which about my childhood I can say. The car shed. My father was, although he lived in a car shed, was perhaps the poorest economically strong person in the neighborhood. He never felt small. Always felt he was equal. And that was amazing. That gave an imprint on me. And in fact, that is why at some point in time, it was somewhere in the back of my mind saying, if ever I write a book, it will have the car shed. So this is how it started, Mr. Wagul. Actually, it started with my writing about a great man. And then, of course, it started about writing about myself.
Very interesting.
That's how it started.
Very interesting. And I'll go into much greater detail in your book. But my next question, sir, for you is how did to use your own terms, how did your Tamil roots and middle class upbringing influence your professional journey?
An interesting question. I see. Let me tell you about my parents rather than community in general. My parents were great people. My father, as I told you, although he was living in the car shed, he commanded. He had. I'm no less than anybody else. That actually made a strong imprint on me throughout my life. I was always comfortable with people much, much senior and much, much bigger place than me. And I will always interact with people on equal terms almost. In fact, an interesting story is when I appeared for Mr. Bogle's, there is a lot in about Mr. Bogle in the book also. I was a scale one junior officer in Bank of India. Mr. Bogle came as chairman and then he invited people all over India to address the problems faced with the bank. He was a great man. He thought wisdom is not concentrated in the head office.
Yeah.
Wisdom is expressed all over the place. And he started calling people, random people, whosoever a subject was dealing with a particular subject, he was called senior or junior, did not matter. So I was a very junior level officer, junior most in fact, junior scale one as I call it. I was in Hyderabad dealing with a subject which he wanted to address. And there in the meeting, although I had never seen the head office, that was the first time I went to the head office. That was the first time I was seeing a chairman in flesh and blood. And in a meeting, having a lot of seniors, 40, 50 people. In that meeting, I could agree with Mr. Wagle's definition of the problem. But the cure which he was thinking on, they did not gel well with me. And because of the upbringing I had, I could freely express to Mr. Wagul, saying that while I agree with the prescription, with the diagnosis, I don't agree with the treatment proposed. And he was such a great man, and he just allowed me to talk. And it was a 3-day conference. And at the end of the 3-day conference, in fact, he makes a paper and then says, okay, Mr. Raman, this is the summary. I hope I would have your consent.
Wow.
So he was such a great man, and I have not seen a greater man, greater generosity than him. This I think I imbibed from my father. My father also gave me 2, 3 important lessons. One, speak the truth. I have never lied, rarely lied, which helped me in my entire life because nobody wanted to cross-check or fact-check whatever I was saying. And that was a great sort of strength for me. That is number 2. Number 3, he said, come and be grateful to people. Anyone who does the smallest thing for you, you should remember for a lifetime.
Correct.
And not only that, he said, the way you remember and express your gratitude, that has to be in public. बहिरंग रूप में करना चाहिए. When you tell others know that you are grateful to this man and what this great man has done for you. So these some of these, and this particular quality of mine is reflected in the book. There are almost 300 people, 200, 300 people who I mentioned, who are all responsible for what good happened to me in my life. This was a feeling of gratefulness, that Thanksgiving and all that. My mother gave one great lesson. She used to say, Rama, Shevana Tirinjachay. So that is a saying in Tamil, which says, do well, whatever you do. So that actually had a great imprint on my life. As a student, as anything, I would aim for perfection all along. So I was, which helped me actually to stand first in the university. I won a gold medal as a private candidate. In my professional career, oh, great pride I used to take. I had no specific ambition at all in my life that I should become this, I should become this, by this, etc. But there was one underlying ambition all through my life. That is, whatever I'm doing now, I have to do it extremely well.
Well said.
And actually, glory followed me. I did not chase glory. Glory actually followed me. So these are some of the things which my parents
Fantastic.
mind,
Fantastic. Absolutely.
which really helped me in my life.
Yeah, fantastic. Mr. Raman, you also say, or you talk about the fact that you transitioned from a clerk at SBI to a direct recruit probationary officer in Bank of India in just 2 years. What key skills or attitudes help you achieve this?
Something is history itself. I did not complete my graduation when I joined State Bank. I was a matriculate. But I had done much of my graduation, and after joining State Bank as a clerk, then I completed my graduation, applied for competitive examinations, and then got selected. But the important point is the attitude which I had. On the day I was appointed as chairman of Canara Bank, and I reported at Bangalore, there are a lot of press people because Bangalore, Canara Bank is an important thing, a lot of press people. And they all knew about my biography, interesting. He said, a pressman said, Mr. Raman, you were a clerk in State Bank of India. You started as a matriculate, and you are a son of a stenographer in the Canara Bank itself. So how does it make you feel on occupying the chair of the chairman?
Mm.
Oh, I told them, yes, it's a very proud day for me because, it's my father's bank. And I'm actually entering the bank as chairman, where he was a clerk
Mm.
and we retired some 35 years ago. But he
Mm.
was telegrapher too,
Yeah.
divisional managers in Canara Bank, one of whom became chairman of the Canara Bank.
Mm.
So, and my father used to command so much of respect, which is what I was telling you. Designation doesn't matter. To
Correct.
command respect, what you do is what matters.
Mm.
State Bank of India, I'll just give you a little example of that. I was maintaining a ledger. It's all written in the book. I was maintaining a ledger in such a wonderful way that if I go away for 2, 3 days, nobody would touch the ledger. They would consolidate all the entries and all that take to accounting. But they say, Raman, you have come, you post it. We don't want to soil the ledger which you have maintained in such brilliance. So, as a clerk, I commanded huge respect. And the same thing followed throughout my life. Governors respected me, finance ministers. I had such relationship with successive governors, successive
Mm.
finance ministers. Although I was a nobody, hierarchy-wise, I was nothing. And the same attitude, I had. I could have conversations with people like Alan Greenspan, former Fed chief,
Yeah.
celebrated person, and Dr. Ben Bernanke, subsequently with the Bank of England governor, Bank of Canada governor. So this particular thing, and then I told the journalist, yes, it's a great thing that I have become chairman today. I'm very happy. But let me tell you one thing I said, and which is what actually shocked them when they
Mm.
heard it. He said, no, I have got the chairman's designation today after 40 years or 35. But I was chairman all along in my life.
Okay.
Even when I was in State Bank of India as a clerk in the darts issued counter, I felt I was the chairman. And after all, what is a chairman? The chairman is somebody who takes the responsibility, says the
Correct.
buck stops here.
Correct.
And when I told them, they were amazed. And the same evening, there was a huge meeting in Canara Bank, Kantideva Indoor Stadium, that engaged on Indoor Stadium. There are
Mm.
some photographs and all that there, so you can have a look in the book. And there some 2,500 people were there in the audience. I was actually shocked that they had engaged in indoor stadium. I asked my secretary, how come indoor stadium has been engaged for this?
Mm.
That, sir, you are son of a staff member, so there is a huge amount of interest in your biography, so all that. So I told all my staff that day, today morning I met the press people. The press people asked me this, and this is what I told them, even as a clerk, as a chairman. And
Mm.
I told them, today I'm promoting all the 2,500 of you who are assembly here as chairman. And
Mm.
actually, Mr. Deepak Parekh writes in his foreword in this book that this is something amazing which he found in terms of attitude and
Mm.
yeah.
Very interesting. You also mentioned facing personal loss and regulatory challenges. How did you find resilience in difficult times?
Difficult times, I will handle it in two ways. One is professional, one is personal. I
Correct.
suffered on both counts at some point in time, which is described in the last chapter of the book
Yeah.
entitled The Twin Tsunamis. I faced twin tsunamis in my life. But so far as professional is concerned, it was never an issue for me. My issue was there were some funda principles with me. Institution is supreme.
Mm.
No individual is higher than the institution. I hold this credo very, very strongly. So I used to take only decisions which, to my mind, were correct and honest and good for the institution. I
Mm.
suffered on account of that. I was transferred also, you will find there in the book. But that did not impact me too much because if I was suffering for having done the right thing, not for having done the wrong thing and being caught and like a thief. So it was never that strong adherence to that principle that institutional loyalty and institutional growth is what you chase institutional glory, personal glory follows, which is the substance of my life, in fact, professionally. So it was never, and I had a lot of problems professionally also because I was never hankering anything
Mm.
and I was doing what was right. And but largely I was respected. So I have to say that. But one or two instances which really put me into deep trouble, but it did not impact me much.
Mm.
Personally speaking, in my personal life, I lost my son, my only son at the age of 34,
Oh, I'm sorry. Mm.
which, yeah. leaving a 2-year baby and a 29-year-old daughter-in-law. It was earth-shattering. And this was a direct result of an action taken by the CBI against an honest person who had done nothing wrong. In fact, they said 2 chairmen booked in this case. This case was when person ran away from India. So many fellows have run away. How are we responsible?
Correct.
And this is the case where it was an account review at 8% share in the consortium. 8%, less than 8, 7.5. And my role was supposed to be the account was there before I went to the bank. The account was running well after I left the bank, but at some point of time it goes bad. And then they say, okay, whosoever has sanctioned it right from day one to day last, whosoever's initials are there, then they said booked. And till date, charge sheet has not been issued. Charge sheet was issued against some 8 people who were retired people. Retired people are treated as game for shooting by the agencies in India. That's a very sad thing. How can I do that? The retired fellows who have, and I have written in my other places how I struggled to relieve some good people who are not being allowed to be relieved because of some specific action. So I have written in detail as to how I used to go to CBC and then allow them freedom. Anyway, so far as I am concerned, when this happened, these two happened. My freedom to travel was restricted. My son happened to come to India, and then when he went back to USA, he had some problem. And then the diagnosis was not getting done. And in the meantime, he thought it would be a case of surgery, and I could not go because they had issued a lookout notice for me.
Wow.
I could not go, all arbitrarily. I've done nothing wrong till date. It's now 6 years, not a word of charge sheet, nothing. They said this will be subject to the government of India approving the action. No fellow in his right senses can ever see anything remotely done wrong by me for doing this. So nobody approved the action. But while they did not approve the action, none had the heart to say there is no case and I close it.
Correct.
My life would have been. So this is the great problem in the public sector. Anyway, when it happened, I could not go. So my son said, Dad, I will come here. And he had a little daughter, 2 years then. And my daughter-in-law was also very, only 29. My wife could have gone, but my wife could not, it was not considered sufficient in the circumstances. So he came. He came, he saw there was a surgery here. There was some problems associated with surgery. He died at the age of 34. So now, at the same time, I'm facing 2 problems. One is this, the CBI thing. Another one is my son's passed away at the age of 34. Somebody said, and I've been a spiritual person. My father is an extremely non-material man. I am also essentially a very non-material person. I don't have any great wealth. And compared to, in my peer group, I was always the poorest economically. Even today, I think that would hold true. But anyway, so I said, what is to be done? There is no point in lamenting. And it was a point at which time I had to show character. And I stood firm. I said, okay, fine, we will not lose heart. And then first thing I thought of Arthur Ashe, who said, why me? The question should never be asked. So I never thought in those terms, why God has chosen me for all these punishments. Never. That thought did not occur to me. And then I thought, okay, my son is gone, but he is now the past. My present is my daughter-in-law and my future is my granddaughter. So I will concentrate on this. In fact, on the day of the funeral, first immediate decision which I had to take is what to do with my son's body. He died in the hospital. And my little grandchild is there at home. And I said, I will not do anything which will impact the present and the future. So I just talked to my pujari. I said, I don't, while I am not a ritualistic person, I don't also violate my religion. I have great pride in by being a Hindu. So I would not like to do something wrong from religious standpoint. He said, no, you're not doing anything wrong. We'll take the body straight to the crematorium. In fact, I did not even bring my son's body home for a last bath at home. I said, this is the problem and this is the situation. Whatever I do, I will do with the interest of the present and the future. So this is, and then I started reading the Bhagavad Gita. I was always conversant with the Bhagavad Gita, but then I started Bhagavad Gita in a serious way. I believe in Swadhyaya. Many people said when there are so many commentaries written on the Bhagavad Gita, why
Mm.
don't you read this, that? Then
Mm.
it occurred to me at the age of 66. Where is the point in my writing others' commentaries when I am of the age that I should be able to give some comments myself?
Absolutely right.
So I decided this will be an entirely my study. And I had this small little pocket size pocket book. And of course, in YouTube, we have all the good renditions. I found one very good, with all detailed in the book. And then I started reading Bhagavad Gita, clause by clause, chapter by chapter, shloka by shloka.
Yeah.
The Swadhyaya gave me something profoundly great amount of thing to me. One is that I could look at some shlokas which hardly anyone has written about.
Mm.
Karmanyavadikaraste mahaphaleshvarasana, everyone knows, and so many.
Everyone's written about this, yes.
There are so many. The entire Bhagavad Gita is God's word. There is nothing that this is better or this is slightly less.
Yeah.
But still, even in the Bhagavad Gita, some things, a few things touch your heart.
Mm.
And the sloka which touched my heart is in that chapter 10, 37, which says, it's the Vibhuti Yoga, this chapter 10. God is telling us what are my manifestations, what are my
Yeah.
qualities, and where all I can be found in this world.
Mm.
And he drops an atom bomb, I thought, when I was reading it. When I said that, he was saying, I'm in this tree, I'm in this Rutu, Kusum Rutu, I'm in
Yeah.
Margashisham,
Mm.
material, non-material, everything is describing to Arjuna. And suddenly he drops a word saying, I am Pandavanam Dhananjaya. So I am Arjuna and amongst Pandavas. And he's talking to Arjuna,
Yeah.
who was in such a bad state at that point in time in the battle. So when I read that, tears rolled down like a Ganga from my hand. Not because of my predicament, but because of the extreme, what
Absolutely.
kindness of God. He
Absolutely.
says, I'm not with you. I'm saying, he says, I'm in you. I
Mm.
felt that day, sir, when I was reading the sloka, that I'm Arjuna and Krishna is there
Correct.
within, and nothing could shake me after that.
Very
And in fact, all of us are Arjunas.
absolutely.
Whenever I
So I'd
feel like,
like to move to one or two more questions
yes, sir.
relating to your book. You just talked about the challenges a lot of honest public servants
Yes, sir.
face post-retirement. How can the system better support them?
The systems, I have to say, the main problem was in the public sector, any account which goes bad is considered a fraud.
Correct.
And once you consider it a fraud, you have to report it to the CBI. And as an investigating officer, CBI, if there is a fraud, then what he immediately comes to his mind is there is a conspiracy.
Mm.
And there is a conspiracy between a bank servant.
Mm.
And they all needed a public servant to be one of the accused. Otherwise, there is no Prevention of Corruption Act, etc., etc. So for the Balika Bakra,
Yeah.
in fact, the public sector banker is the Balika Bakra here. So you have to identify somebody and
Mm.
say you conspired with this rascal
Mm.
and then caused so much of loss to the bank.
Mm.
So that was the foundational problem with public sector bankers, especially retired.
Mm.
Retired means there is nobody to support them, so
Correct.
that's a fodder for auction.
Absolutely.
So now, of course, there have been a lot of improvements since my action took in 2018. After all my action took place, the Prevention of Corruption Act was also some improvements were done.
Mm.
And they also said CBI cannot actually go against retired people.
Mm.
Whether retired or serving, you have to have the approval of the bank.
Well said.
In my own case, actually, four people were still in the bank, and the
Mm.
bank refused permission, saying that nothing doing, there is nothing wrong that these people have done.
Correct.
And eight people against whom the charges are issued, of course, they were all acquitted by the CBI court. We are in a limbo. Charge sheet has not been issued, but we have had the bad fallout of all that without doing anything wrong.
I
And
agree.
the third point is they said even for retired, you have to seek permission of the bank. That's another one move which they did. Another one they decided that beyond 50 crores, actually any fraud or anything, then it has to be sent to the CBC for an advisory board,
Mm.
which sits on three or four people sit in judgment whether there's really anything wrong on the part of this gentleman or lady. So, and that 50 crores has been reduced to 3 crores. So, this has actually, in my opinion, put the position of the public sector bankers on a much, much better even
I
keel
agree.
than
I
earlier.
agree.
So,
But coming back to now, you've interacted with leaders all over the world. And of course, you are a contemporary leader and you see a lot of young leaders as well. I'd love to get your thoughts on what are some of the core values you believe today's leaders should have.
core leader of there were some 4 or 5 things which I would immediately mention.
Mm.
One is institutional loyalty. Leaders should not be hankering after personal glory. The minute a leader thinks he is bigger than the institution, which has happened now, and it's still happening all over the world,
Yeah.
institutions, parties, countries. So a leader's first job is to is to feel that he is actually subservient to the institutions. That's number one. Number two, a leader should not hesitate to take difficult problems on his hand. In fact, my own credo was I have written 12 commandments in my Canara Bank chapter. What were my principles? So you can have a look at that. But my approach was I will tackle the most difficult problem first. But generally said, no, pluck the low-hanging fruit and all that.
Yeah.
That is fine. But to me, if you tackle the hardest problem first and show courage and show your character, then all the other problems actually vanish out of thin air.
Mm.
Number three is a leader should realize that he is not only to take credit. In fact, his job is to give credit to the chief members and to take responsibility for anything going wrong. He has to be generous. There is nothing can be achieved by a single individual.
Mm.
These are all big institutions and country. And for instance, I will give an example of Narendra Modi. I mean, for instance, when he came and when he addressed the country on the 15th of August that year, he talked about Swachh Bharat.
Yes.
And everyone was actually deriding him. What is this Prime Minister? He is talking about Swachh Bharat. And now, what a disgrace it was that you will find people shitting on both sides of the road in Bombay and all over the place when it was like that. And
Mm.
now, do you see that? I mean, a leader has to have the courage of conviction. And to me, he is a great, great leader. For if not for anything else,
Yeah.
for removing the shitting aspect across the country, you never see that now.
Correct.
Somebody does it, and he'll be admonished by the public itself.
Correct.
So
Correct.
taking powerful things which may not give you glory, and there are a lot of a leader has to realize that there are a lot of non-glamorous things which are important.
Yeah.
But in my own life, my biggest achievement in Bank of India, in a way, I would say, was tackling the North-South reconciliation mess, which was there for 1.5 years.
Mm.
So reconciliation is something very unglamorous.
Mm.
So these unglamorous things should never be lost sight of by a leader. It is there that the real problems actually get hidden, and he has to have the courage to tackle those.
Amazing. I have time for one more question, Mr. Raman.
Yes,
Are there any specific lessons from
yes,
your
sir.
own career that
Yes,
you've
sir.
written in your book
Yes, sir.
that will resonate beyond banking universally?
One is, yeah, a good question. Does not matter how lowly you start, you can raise the top.
Mm.
Again, Narendra Modi,
Yeah.
Chai Wala,
Yeah.
and Prime Minister. So this is something, in my case, it was from a car shed to the corner room and beyond. And beyond, I would like to touch on that a bit later.
Yeah.
And then tough things, tough times do come. And it is for you to handle that. In fact, I used to tell myself when my father's son died that, tragedy is, what is a tragedy? Tragedy need not be tragedy at all. Tragedy, in fact, is not a tragedy, provided you take the tragedy as a test which is administered by God Himself on you.
Mm.
So I used to tell myself for years, some 2, 3 years after he passed away, I am being subject to a test and I will not fail this test because this test is so important. So that is, I think, one. Showing empathy with people really makes you a hero. I was hero worshipped in all my organizations, wherever I went.
Yeah.
Just for not doing something great. Show empathy, show kindness. But I'll tell you a little story. In the Union Bank, when I was there as ED, IPL started in 2008.
Mm.
And their IPL was a good Rasmatas thing, and everyone was wondering. And I used to get passes as a ED. A lot of passes would come. But I would say, I want everyone to experience the beauty of IPL. So I used to tell whosoever was bringing it to my secretary or something, I was not asking for the ticket. But if somebody was bringing the ticket, I would say, 10, give me some 10 other tickets of lower denominations. I want all my team to experience the beauty of IPL. And all my chaplasis, all my drivers, all my club staff, everybody in the floor had enjoyed the IPL. And 12 years, 15 years after I left, people still say there was one Raman who was ED here who gave us the IPL tickets and we all enjoyed
How
ever
interesting.
after.
How interesting.
So empathy is one great thing, and show by actions. Words don't matter at all. It is by actions that some gestures like this IPL ticket itself as an example. And institutions are supreme. There is absolutely no compromise on that. So
Very
these are,
interesting.
I think,
Very
the
interesting.
lessons which.
So I'm going to ask you one last question since you mentioned about life after Canara Bank. Tell me I know you're on the board of SEBI as well. Tell me a little bit more about how you are constructing your life after being such a high profile banker and such a respected author.
Sir, two things. I thought you were also asking. SEBI was a great experience for me. Although I was in a bank for 41 years,
Yeah.
those 5 years as SEBI chief was deputy chief as a member was phenomenal. Because as the chairman of a bank, whatever you do impacts only one organization.
Hmm.
Here, as a regulator, whatever you do, it impacts the entire industry.
Correct.
And in SEBI, of course, the role of a member is of three types, three ingredients. One is a legislator, so we are involved constantly in formulating regulations. Number two is the executive. If somebody goes wrong, how to ban him from the market and then take immediate steps.
Hmm.
Number three is quasi-judicial
Hmm.
authority. So we issue a lot of orders when we have to give a hearing and then arrive at a conclusion. My orders were very pathbreaking, so much so that Arun Jaitley, the former finance minister, who was also a very legal brain, he was conversant with most of my orders, pathbreaking orders. There are a number of pathbreaking orders. One order I will mention, which is Pan Asia Advisors versus SEBI.
Right.
So that details can be had in the book. Number two, now that is a great position. And after that, now last 6 years, I've been a retired person. I have not found myself free at all. I have been very tight. I started with Bhagavad Gita, which I was
Yeah.
mentioning to
You
you.
told me.
And then I'm fortunate having some great sisters and a brother. Somebody said, why don't you write Valmiki Ramayana?
Hmm.
So here are my Bhagavatam books,
Wow.
Valmiki Ramayana and all that. Why don't you write with hand? But God is so kind. We can feel the presence of God directly. Somebody said, my elder sister said, why don't you write the Sundarakand?
Hmm.
Sundarakand, you are in
Yeah.
such trouble. Sundarakand is read when you are in trouble.
Yes.
So he said, why don't you write? I said, fine. So I got all the books from Gita Press and all that. I was about to write from Sundarakand from tomorrow, say. And today I get a WhatsApp message from somebody detailing the deeds of an old lady of 86 years old. She she has written the entire Valmiki Ramayana in original Sanskrit, the
Hmm.
person from South, in about 8 years. That I thought was a signal to me. Arey, why are you writing only Sundarakand? Write the entire. So I started with Balakand and then
Very nice.
oh yeah, 24th. It took 2 years. And then now when my brother's son died, it was also an issue with me how to celebrate festivals or birthdays and all that. So I found a new way to celebrate birthdays. So any birthday or any happy event, I would write some landmark chapters from Ramayana.
Hmm.
And in fact, I celebrated
Wonderful.
Diwali of the
Yeah.
2022 by writing about Ram's Pattabhishek. Afterwards, I wrote Srimad Bhagavat also. Then I wrote Narayaniam. Now I am actually writing by hand the great work Sri Jnaneshwari in Marathi.
Wonderful.
So,
Wonderful.
time spending is no problem.
Fantastic. I'm sure you'll have a very, very enriching life, and I'm sure I'd love to have another conversation when you write another book on how you have moved from banking to Indic scriptures. But on that note, Mr. Raman, I just want to say what an amazing conversation this has been. I think it's my privilege to have spoken to someone of your stature,
Thank
to
you.
have discussed not just your book, but your entire life, which I think has a lot of lessons that can be drawn for a lot of young viewers and listeners. Thank you for speaking to me and all the very best to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.